Hello, this is Benjamin Fulford speaking on July 21st, 2013. Before I go on a 1-month trip away from the internet and into the wilderness, I would like to explain to the people who get this video what is happening with the international financial system at present and what we can expect in the autumn. First of all, there are several large factions fighting for control of the financial system, and I have talked directly with several of them, and I think I have a general understanding of who is behind each faction and what their agenda is. One group is the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland, and you can call them the Swiss if you want. They have come up with the idea of the BRICS alliance of 180 nations and are trying to help arrange for financing for a large group of non-Western countries. A different group can be linked to the Committee of 300 headed by Queen Elizabeth of England, and that would be the traditional Rothschild Anglo-Jewish financial group. And they have contacted me and said that they support in principle the idea of a major campaign to end poverty and stop environmental destruction. And hopefully some actual action will happen eventually. A third group with a lot of power and control over the current financial system are what you could call the original merchants of Venice. These are the old Italian financial families. For example, the very first pioneers of modern finance include the Del Banco family. The Del Bancos, operated from a bench, and it was their name that gave rise to the word bank. They have since renamed themselves Warburg. They're also the Medicis, the Borgias, and other Italian aristocratic families who can be linked under the umbrella of the P2 Freemason Lodge. And they're also connected to the Vatican. Right now, this group is also telling me they support the idea of a jubilee, which means that all debts, public and private, would be written off on a one-off basis, and furthermore, that as a part of the jubilee, everybody who rents in a house or apartment will no longer have to pay rent. They will now own that house or apartment. And everybody with a mortgage will no longer have a mortgage. Instead, the government will pay the equivalent of rent and mortgage money out of a government bank to the current landowners, so that they do not get left out of the Jubilee picture. They also are talking about splitting the world into 5 power groups and all sorts of stuff like that, which I think is something that must be left to further in the future. Another group that is deeply involved in this current situation are the people known as the Gnostic Illuminati. Now, they have contacted me through a grandmaster who calls himself Alexander Romanov, although he's used a whole bunch of different names. I have confirmed, however, that he does represent very large and powerful interests throughout the world. He claims his group was behind the recent riots and demonstrations in Turkey, in Brazil, and furthermore, they are behind the change of government in Egypt that just took place. They do not want any more family control of the process of creating and distributing money. They claim that they started the French, American, and Russian revolutions. And you'll remember that each of these revolutions was against a landowning aristocracy or a finance controlling aristocracy. And so they wish to remove the families that control the Federal Reserve Board from power completely. They are also, I think you could describe them as the angry young men. It would be the younger generation within the various intelligence and military agencies as well as gang groups. They are a force to be reckoned with, and we agree on a lot of points, mainly the need for a big campaign to end poverty and stop environmental destruction. But when it comes to overthrowing kings and that sort of thing, that's their thing. That's not what the White Dragon group is about. Now, who are the White Dragons, you might ask? Well, when the Asian secret societies first contacted us, they asked us to contact Western benevolent secret groups, and we are an alliance of such groups. We are the White Dragon Society can only be used for the greater good. It cannot be used for personal benefit, and it is very active right now because the greater good is in great danger. The people, for example, who supported President Kennedy and his plans for world peace are behind us. We also have a lot of the members of the Freemasons and other traditional secret groups behind us, and a lot of people in I believe the military, the Pentagon is essentially with us, although they keep saying as soon as we get our hands on the money machine, then they will turn around and follow us. And now, is that going to happen, and how is that going to happen? This is something that there will be a lot of private discussion about during the summer months to figure out exactly what is going to take place, but we need to coordinate Western approach with Russia and China, among other places. But for now, especially, it's the Chinese and the Russians we need to talk to, or instead of saying the Chinese, I should say the Asians. Which brings us to the issue of Neil Keenan and his group, who are allied with some families known as the Dragon family. This is basically the old aristocratic families of Asia, including the heirs of the Qing dynasty, the last Chinese dynasty. Now, they claim, quite rightfully, that a lot of gold of theirs was taken from them, and they were given bonds, huge denomination bonds, which they have the ownership title to, and they're asking for their gold to be returned or else for the bonds to be cashed. And the current owners of the Federal Reserve Board are unable to do either. And that puts them in a bind. On the other hand, they currently control the actual machinery for making dollars and euros. So this is what you would call a Mexican standoff. Now, I've talked to people representing the Committee of 300 and the BIS and the various old world order banking groups about this, and they basically do not want to hand over trillions of dollars and therefore world power to unknown, unquantifiable secret groups. Which is why in the fall we're going to try to do something open and transparent in order to break this deadlock. And various moves are also being made on the geopolitical front to prepare the ground for some kind of agreement. Now, the change of power in Egypt was very important for a lot of reasons. Basically, what it means is that the Western Europe now relies on areas controlled mainly by Russia for its energy supplies. Okay, Qatar has stopped financing the overthrow of Syria, and that means there's going to be no pipeline bringing Saudi and Qatari gas to Europe that's not in the control of Russia. So the Europeans, who don't have any real foreign currency right now because they've been running as a whole a trade deficit with the rest of the world for more than 30 years, are now essentially under the control of Russia, whether they like it or not. And that is why Vladimir Putin, who has been democratically elected and is very popular in his country, is somebody they're going to have to negotiate with. The only people in Europe who can negotiate with Putin on an equal basis now are the Germans, because they do not have a trade deficit, they have a surplus. And they are also weaning their economy away from petro in other carbon-based energy sources. They're going solar, they're going wind, they're going green, and they're going eco. So basically, Germany and Russia, who were both excluded from the current power structure that creates dollars and euros, are going to have to get a big place at the table for these talks to proceed anywhere. And again, as I said, the old Anglo-Jewish people are basically on board for a big program to help the planet, and the Asian groups have also agreed in principle that some sort of 50-50 deal with the West over the traditional ownership of the world's gold and treasures will have to be reached, and they're willing to do that through the White Dragon Society as a temporary measure, a transitional measure. And then we have, of course, the problem of the corporate government of the United States and what to do about it. This government, as those of us who've researched the subject know, is not the Republic of the United States of America, which declared independence in 1776. Rather, it is a corporate entity that was created in 1871 and is based in the independent city-state of Washington, D.C. Now, it has usurped slowly many of the powers of the former now dormant Republic of the United States. It is also obviously and clearly run at this point by gangsters. Now, this group of people does not want to give up control over the production of United States dollars, and they are the biggest obstacle right now to world peace. Remember, these are the people who have been invading countries like Iraq, like Afghanistan. They have been killing world leaders. They have murdered many Japanese prime ministers, just to give one local example from here in Japan. But they've been killing people all over the world since World War II. They've also been spreading biological warfare agents. Okay, this has been proven beyond a doubt. The SARS is a biological warfare agent that was race specific, that was put out after Bush Jr. took power. They still are run by a crime syndicate, even though President Barack Obama was supposed to put a kinder face on it. The essence of that government is not changed. So what needs to be done is for somehow the Republic of the United States to be restored. Now, the problem with that right now seems to be that there's no agreement on who to replace Obama with. Right now, Obama is like a spokesperson for a collective government run by, you know, the military, industrial, Wall Street group. So people like Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, George Bush, you know, Hillary Clinton, all these people collectively are using Obama as a spokesperson. And Obama has also links with the powerful African American groups who have their own agenda, and hopefully the agenda will be more like Martin Luther King than Malcolm X. In other words, you know, peace and love, not violence and gang fighting, you know. And I believe that to be the case. So, If we are to replace Obama, and the question remains who to do it with. The best thing would be for Obama himself to tell the truth to the American people and then arrange for a genuine, fair, democratic election with freedom of the press to restore the Republic of the United States of America. And Obama would then gracefully stand aside once this process was completed. That's the ideal. Now, the other thing that the people in the United States of America need to understand is that the U.S. dollar is not and never has been an American currency, or at least not since the Federal Reserve Board was founded in 1913. And as long as they keep the U.S. economy linked to the U.S. dollar, they will continue to see increasing unemployment and economic decay and collapse. The only way for the United States to quickly start a fast recovery is to issue greenbacks, government currency backed by the goodwill and faith of the people of the United States and the resources of the United States, and stop using the U.S. dollar. It's the only solution you're going to have. The United States dollar is a world currency. It's controlled by the people of the world, and its interests are not the same as those of the United States people and economy. You need to understand that. This needs to take place. Then you can print out as many greenbacks as you want and do whatever the hell you want with them, like build new space stations or whatever. Now, the other thing that I need to point out here is that no U.S. dollars have been created since 2008. The people who stopped the production, who are keeping their names secret to avoid assassination, although I have a pretty good guess who they are, have told me that they're basically going to wait until the swamp is drained completely. And that process seems to be taking place, slowly but surely. Just like when the Japanese financial bubble collapsed. At first, the dodgier places were ones to go bust, but eventually it hit even the biggest AAA banks. And in terms of the world, what's happened is that the southern European countries got hit first, and the United States got hit because they're the ones in the worst shape. But it looks like now it's finally coming to China, and the Chinese economy, which is 40% real estate, is kind of finally hitting a brick wall. And that means that the big push by the Chinese Communist government to take over the world and make it all Chinese is just not going to happen, and it never was going to happen. And the traditional Asian societies understand that this is a world thing we're dealing with, not a China thing. So I'm going to take a well-needed rest. You can see my eyes are bloodshot and I'm overweight from too much work and not enough exercise. And I'm going to think about what suggestions I personally can make towards breaking the deadlock. And at the same time, there will be a lot of informal discussions. However, I can say at this point that having talked to various parties, including the Committee of 300, including the Asian secret societies, including the people at the BIS, is that apart from the corporate government of the United States, everybody agrees that we should have a huge campaign to end poverty and stop environmental destruction. And one way or another, we're going to make this happen. The Asians have given me $12.5 trillion worth of Morgenthau 1934 Federal Reserve Board bonds. Now, they're willing to transfer the ownership to the White Dragon Society and as an interim measure, but the question is then, how is that money going to be dispersed to start the economy going again? And as I said, I believe that it'll have to be done in a public and transparent manner so that nobody feels left out or that there's some sort of cheating. It's not going to be done by secret societies operating on secret agendas. It's going to be a public, fair, and open thing, whatever happens. And remember this, if you get your hands on this magic money making machine, which they have been, kind of hogging for the past 100 years, then theoretically you can finance everything. Of course, if it doesn't exist in the real world, it's just going to be a hallucination, but we could start with something that I've called Operation Santa Claus, which is, as I say, you start with the Jubilee, you write off all debts, public and private, and then pay government money to all the people who required rent to live, and then give money to all the different groups, each one, and let them, try their own thing. Now, this will result in some people going on a wild binge, followed by a big hangover, but a lot of big projects can also get started. Now, my personal Benjamin Fulford, not White Dragon proposal, and something I've been pushing for based on 30 years of observing how Asian economies are run, is to set up a big economic planning agency with a budget of, say, $1 trillion. That's more than 20 times the budget of the World Bank, to carry out big projects like turning the deserts green in the Sahara, Australia, and turning the Canadian wilderness warm, Siberian wilderness warm, using new energy technology, replenishing the oceans with fish, building floating cities, building space colonies, stuff like that, but done realistically. And my personal vote is for the first person to run such an organization would be Jeffrey Sachs, because he has the best public track record of any mainstream economist I have watched over the years of reading, business news. And I'm, for example, I'm not a manager. I'm not an economist, and I'm an idea man. I couldn't run such a thing myself, nor would I want to. However, this organization, with $1 trillion at its back, could do a lot of good. And if other people had similar plans for similar organizations, for example, the idea of a BRICS bank, or the ideas put out by the One People's Public Trust, or Neil Keenan's group, they could all be financed. That's why it's Operation Santa Claus. Give presents to everybody. And I think this is going to be the essence of what sort of solution will come out in the fall. And if there is no agreement and there is no solution, then I am very worried that there's going to be a lot of pressure from below, focusing on the people who are now at the top of the pyramid. And it's just going to get worse and worse. At a certain point, it's going to be those Gnostic Illuminati with their guillotines and their street justice who are going to offer the only solution. Because if we can't fix the system from the top down, then it's going to be torn down from the bottom up, and that is something I don't think we want to happen. Anyway, I wish you all a very good and relaxing summer, and hopefully we'll have some better news in the fall. I don't give a precise date because there is no precise date. We are right now in uncharted territory. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. It's going to be up to us. No precedent for such a situation has existed in world history. So we are on totally new ground, and we'll find out if all the different human groups agree to these big projects and plans, and suddenly we're blocked anyway, then we'll have to figure out where this blockage is coming from. If it's coming from outside of human influence, then we're going to have to deal with that too. But whatever the case, it's completely possible to end poverty and stop environmental destruction within a few months if we have the collective will to do that. Furthermore, there is no reason why we cannot start building underwater cities, floating cities, space cities, and expanding out into the universe at an exponential rate. We're going to make that happen one way or another. We're going to keep approaching this issue until humanity is freed from this tiny little fish tank known as the Earth and allowed to expand into the universe. That is the end goal. Remember though, we all want to be happy and free and productive, and we're going to make it happen. As far as I can tell, nobody is against this agenda. Nothing is standing in our way. It's just the technical issue of how to get from here to there, and we'll figure that out hopefully this autumn. So I remain very optimistic as I head off for a holiday, and hopefully I'll come back in better shape. Alright, thank you very much, and I appreciate the donations you made for this video, and hopefully once we've covered our costs and expenses, this and other videos we'll produce in the future will be then made available for free. Thank you very much. Have a nice summer.